Hey, Deserving listeners, Love is Blind, the reunion. Let's watch.
He's respectful, and then when we broke up, I wasn't respectful, and it's just some things like that you kind of watch back, and like I said, Hannah's entitled to, her perspective and her opinion. I just saw it a little bit different.
Nick demonstrated a lot of patience that I never would have had, so I'm very impressed by that, and I knew he was a good dude, but I was definitely impressed by his patience throughout the whole thing. So
Interesting. I don't know why I didn't expect this, but I didn't expect it. So someone is supportive of Nick. I didn't expect anyone to be. I don't know why, but Garrett is saying that Nick was very patient, and Garrett is saying, I don't know if I could have been that patient. I don't know what Garrett is referring to, but we can imagine.
What are you feeling when he says it takes a lot of patience to be in a relationship with you, to hear that constantly?
Yeah, I think for sure. I'm a big personality. I'm a lot. I'm self-aware, and I know that you have to have a lot of patience with me because I am direct and I'll just say things.
Yeah, self-aware. I'm direct and I'll just say things. But when you are the way that you are, inferior to me, I can't help but to be direct and tell the truth.
Yeah, I get it. I guess he had a lot of patience. Yeah, that makes sense.
So you don't have any, in watching it, I don't want to use the word remorse because I never want to take away from you.
Wait, why are people laughing? What happened there?
Yeah, I think for sure. I'm a big personality. I'm a lot. I'm self-aware, and I know that you have to have a lot of patience with me because I am direct and I'll just say things. But I get it. I guess he had a lot of patience. Yeah, that makes sense.
So you don't have any, in watching it, I don't want to.
Maybe someone said something in the audience. That's the way it kind of looks. Like Taylor, I think, is looking into the audience, or someone scoffed or something. Either way, it looks like Tyler and Ashley and Garrett all think that Hannah has issues, and they're laughing out of awkwardness. I don't know. Maybe I'm just, distorted right now. I don't know.
I want to take away from your independent strength, but in watching the way that it was delivered, and I know that you said you could have worded it differently, do you have anything you want to say to Nick about how you were communicating with him during your engagement?
I'm just direct. Period. I'm very direct. It's harsh. It's bad. I know. This past year I've worked on it.
Okay, so she says, I don't know, I'm just direct. And it sounds like the host is trying to get Hannah to address beyond just being direct, right? And I think you could just provide an example or show a clip or something, or say, when you said that you were better than him.
Watching it back, I see, you could have said a lot differently, But that's inherently who I am, and I am direct. I just need to work on how direct I am. Yeah,
she just keeps saying the same thing over and over again. And what do we expect? She said she's been working on it, but the first step to working on it is recognizing it. What is the it that you're working on? Just having your direct truth be delivered more slowly, or I don't know.
But yeah, I'm just direct, okay? I'm a bitch sometimes, I get it, I know.
Okay, a lot of people, cast members and audience, I don't know, it looks like a lot of people think that Hannah is dodging, which is interesting. I didn't expect that to happen, but she's saying, I don't know, I can be a B word, I'm direct, what are you going to do? That's inherently who I am, and I don't know if she's abusive, but that's what abusive people will say. They, it's like an addict, it's not the same, but people who are abusive typically, not always, there are psychopathic or sadistic abusive people. I'm not talking about them. They're rare. They're more, among abusive people, there's a higher rate of psychopaths and sadistic individuals, antisocial personality individuals, but it's still a minority. The vast majority of people who are abusive in a spousal relationship, for example, they are trying to manage their attachment security through coercive control. They're worried about losing their partners because of their own abandonment or trauma that they've been through. And also they've been modeled that behavior, so they think that it's normal and they enact it. as a way to keep people close to them. They believe that if they aren't in control and if they're not coercing their partners to be with them, that they will never have attachment security, that people will inherently leave them. This is all unconscious, but the conscious mind will need to come up with some justification for it, because even abusive people want to be able to go to sleep at night thinking that they're a good person. We all do this. We all go into denial when we need to. And so these individuals, like someone suffering from addiction, will develop a narrative over time that justifies it to themselves. And a very frequent denial system is to say, I'm direct, I'm telling the truth, this is inherently who I am, I can't change, you can't make me change, I don't have any reason to change, I'm perfect, everything's fine, you're the problem. And she's still doing that. She's getting some pushback from people. And I'm also wondering about her friends. We saw her two friends who seemed to be very much on board with her perspective. We didn't see much, and who knows what Hannah had fed the friends, which you could only imagine. One friend in particular, the one that was sitting further away, just her resting face was, I don't know, something was there. And it's possible that she, Hannah, has in her searching and cultivating friendships that only certain sorts of people would want to be friends with her or would seek her out as a friend. People with similar backgrounds, similar attitudes about things. I don't know. But yeah, what are we supposed to expect here? Now, the question is, what should the host do? What should the show do? I think it's viable to, it depends on the goal, right? If the goal is to blast someone, then I guess there's that goal, but I don't think that's a viable goal. If the goal is to further the story, then it would justify asking more questions. If the goal is to, at least as a production team and as hosts, give a signal that you do not approve of what looks like abusive behavior, then another set of questions would be in order. Something like, okay, so you're a very direct person, but what do you say about the things that you said regarding being superior to him when he asked to be treated like an equal, and you said that you're going to, I'll treat you like an equal when you act like an equal, or when you have responsibilities like an equal, or something like that. Now, I don't know what everyone has seen. If this was shot in early October, then there's a chance that the audience has only seen the first 6 episodes, right? And it's possible, I guess, that the cast has only seen that. I don't know. No, because we saw that Ramses, when he was talking about breaking up with Marissa, that he saw her crying in the one-on-one interview, and that episode was the wedding episode, which is the episode just before this. So it sounds like they did what they normally do, where all the cast watch those episodes. But then I'm wondering about the audience. I mean, if they're laughing, so it must be after, unless they show the whole season to the audience, which somehow I doubt, that they, and just think about the NDAs that they have to get all of the audience to sign, because they could spoil the end of the show, and there's a lot of effort to not spoil it. Anyway, so let's see what follow-up questions they have here for Hannah.
AD.
Yeah. Listen, she's doubling down. She's standing.
Doubles down that's exactly what's happening.
She said what she said, and she's standing on it. I love that for you, girl. And you look great, by the way. Thank you. You look great.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
You look awesome. And I'm sorry I was so cruel to you. I am.
It's fine.
I am.
All right, then a quick, I'm sorry for being so cruel to you. What does she talk? She's a straight shooter. She's just direct. So what cruelty? I would love for someone, okay, cruel. What do you mean? What's something that you said that was cruel? What do you mean by that? I'd be curious. Is she actually referring to something? Maybe they'll ask.
We talk about Garrett's glow up, but you had a little glow up too, Hannah.
Thank you.
How's the last year been for you?
Oh, it's been hard as hell. It's been a rough year. But
When you say that, like,
I've just been working on myself a lot, just like internally and externally. I had a lot of room to grow. I didn't have to watch it back to know that, right? Like, I already knew that when we filmed it. It's hard to figure yourself out and to make sure you're like the best version of yourself. So I've just been figuring it out, I think.
Yeah. And do you feel like you're loving this version?
All right, so she's referring to some sort of psychological growth, it sounds like. I don't know. It's possible. I'd be curious what she was doing, whether it's legit or not.
On for just being the type of person she is and being, you know, super transparent. Like, we need more of that, right? And she's received way too much hate.
Why are you
it's not
liking the hate
necessary.
comments then that people are leaving on your page?
Like what?
Like, well, people, like, of course I'm creeping on you right now. I'm like looking. And like people say things and it's not bad, but it's just like people say mean things and you like it.
Yeah, so, you know, if
I don't
it's
think you mean it like that,
comments,
but it hurts my feelings.
Yeah, no, I get it.
All right, so Nick was trying to support her and push back at people attacking her. And yeah, if people are attacking her, then yeah, Hannah doesn't deserve that. We don't know what's happening with Hannah. And even if it is the way that it looks, no one deserves to be bullied by the entire internet. So, or at least very few people, certainly not Hannah. And then Hannah says, well, then why are you liking the mean comments? And then he says, what are you talking about? So maybe he is doing that. I don't know. I'm guessing that there were, so she's saying she's creeping, which means she's on his account, right? So he might post something and then someone might say something like, hey, you deserved better or something like that. And then he might have liked it.
After we broke up, my friends are with me. And of course, my friends are like, let's go through our shit. And we're packing up. And his work notebook, it wasn't like, it was just right on the table, just like out. And she opened up and she was like, this is dated September like 18th, something like that. I'm not sure what the exact date is. I think it was 2 weeks right before we left. It was
2 weeks before you left.
Okay, I'm actually going to rewind this because it sounds like she's saying that her and her friends were going through his stuff, found a notebook, opened it up, and started rummaging through it. That's what it sounds like.
My feelings.
Yeah, no, I get it.
After we broke up, my friends are with me. And of course, my friends are like, let's go through our shit. And we're packing up.
So she's deflecting, she's triangulating, and okay, let's say that your friends did say, let's go through his shit. You can say no. So it sounds like she's trying to deflect blame, which isn't working on me anyway. And yeah, now, if it's innocent and, you know, he looked at her note, he says that the note was just out on the bedstand and he could just see it right there. So if it was something like that, okay, but it doesn't sound like it.
In his work notebook, it wasn't like, it was just right on the table, just like out. And
okay, she says work notebook. Okay.
And she opened up and she was like, this is dated September like 18th, something like that. I'm not sure what the exact date is. I think it was 2 weeks right before we left. It was
2 weeks before you left for the pod, so right
film.
before filming.
Yes, like it was a very Nick note. It was like there was 3 entries. So one.
Oh, that was Jessica. I didn't even recognize her. And that's her husband. Right. Yeah. I've talked with her. I was on her podcast. But, okay. Jessica from season 1.
Goes, he wants to sell 2 homes this year. Okay. He wants to be in the best shape of his life in the next 2 weeks. And then the third bullet point, which was by far the most interesting, was that he wants to be the most famous person ever on Love is Blind.
Okay. So you're going through essentially his diary, or at least it's, if I opened up someone's work notebook and I saw a first bullet point like personal goal, I would immediately shut it because that's private information. But anyway. And remember that she broke up with him. If he dumped her, then you would say, well, you know, she's upset and she's looking for answers. That's not what happened. She broke up with him. So anyway, and the whole reason why she broke up with him was because he wasn't good enough for her. He wasn't mature enough. He wasn't smart enough. And he even agreed with it, by the way. I watched that scene. I didn't react to it, but, you know, a second time. Anyway, so she opens it up. Maybe you could make an argument that that was innocent, and then she starts reading it. Maybe you could make an argument that that's innocent. I don't know. But now you're talking about it. And what's your point, Hannah? What is your point? Now, maybe it'll get worse. I don't know. But his goals was to sell 2 houses, which I think that's her way of saying that he is irresponsible and it'd be. And let me say something, because there have been some comments around this, that if you have in your past had someone in your life, a spouse, who did not carry their weight financially in the relationship or in the family, and it was a huge thorn in your side, and the person mooched off you or forced you to work 2 jobs or whatever, you are entitled to your hurt and your anger. That doesn't mean that Nick deserves to be harmed and ridiculed. We don't know what they would have been like if they would have lived together for a while. And he agreed that he needed to learn those skills or something. We don't know if he would have been lazy or something. We don't know if he would have been irresponsible. We can't really trust what Hannah was saying. Is it likely that he lacked life skills that a lot of people his age might have? Yeah, but he had reasons for that. He's living with his parents, and he was working on his football career, and which, by the way, means that he has a lot of responsibility. Like, there's a lot of people who want to play in the CFL and the XFL, and they don't make it because they're not irresponsible. They don't train enough. They don't show up enough. They don't work with the coaches well enough, that kind of stuff. So anyway, if you have those kinds of traumas or those kind of histories, I could see a Nick bothering you in some way. That's all fine, but that does not justify what Hannah was doing in the least. So there's that. But anyway, so then she, reads the 2 houses, and then I want to, be in better shape, and then I want to be the most famous person on Love is Blind. Why is she saying that? I'll drill down on that for a second. So it sounds like she came prepared to say this, and she was, at least at this point in the conversation, she was completely left off. She was asked very lightweight questions, but everyone seemed to be giggling out of awkwardness because of the way that she was avoiding and in denial of her behavior. Nick, by the way, was not laughing. Nick was complimenting her, being nice to her, stepped in and said, by the way, everyone needs to take it easy. And then she starts to lay into him and accuse him of liking something, which we still don't know exactly what that is. I'm just going to take a guess and say that who knows? Who knows what it was? But anyway, and then she just starts to volunteer this thing. She wasn't asked about it. And so what's her goal? What's her point? And this was what she was doing when she was breaking up with him. In the one-on-one interview, she was talking about she said to his face, on the phone, Nick, before we were on camera, you said that you didn't want to be blasted because you didn't want me to blast you because you didn't want people to look at you in a bad light or something like that. And yeah, that's possible. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. Like, hey, by the way, let's take it easy on each other and not throw each other under the bus. I don't want my entire life and social life and everything to be upended and ruined because we accuse each other of a bunch of horrible things. I would, there's nothing wrong with wanting that. It'd be one thing if he said that to her and forced her to do it and then proceeded to blast her, which he didn't do, right? Which he could have, honestly, right? So there's that. And I think what she thinks that she's doing is revealing that he is, I guess, fake or something, and I don't know if she's abusive, but at the very least, some bullies, I guess we could just say, or people that are oriented toward social superiority, they will gather ammunition and will pull it out when they feel like it's useful. Politicians will do this as well, some politicians. And I think that's what she's doing. It's irrelevant. Now, let's look at his side. That's interesting that he wrote that. I want to be and we could expect that every cast member prior to going on the show would be mindful of how they might come across. And you could imagine that a fair percentage would hope and imagine that they would be liked. And that's, I think, often what pulls people onto reality TV is that they, not in a pathological sense, but they narcissistically believe that everyone's going to love them. even the ones that come across, it's sort of like if you ever watched American Idol, you will see some people show up and audition and they seem to believe, and they might even state that they think they are the most talented person there, and they clearly are not. You know, in the absence of sufficient feedback, we are, you know, prone to believing all sorts of positive things about us that aren't true. So it's sort of like, I can't remember the exact percentage, and research shows different numbers, but something like 70% of people think they're above average drivers, which is mathematically not possible. It's that kind of thing. We're all self-centered to some degree. We're all self-aggrandizing to some degree. We're all narcissistic to some degree, and it will bias us, and it will cause us to have distortions. So you can imagine a lot of casts, but that's a particular kind of statement that we're hearing, and who knows, maybe it's not even what was being written there. But you know, if we go with that, it being accurate, that Nick is saying, "I want to be the most famous guy." You know, where's that come from? Because he certainly doesn't come across as someone that is self-centered and superior. He seems quite the opposite. Is it possible that he was faking the entire time on the show? It is, and he does fit at least a version of that, because he didn't really display much spontaneity, right? He never got angry or upset or particularly provoked to push back on Hannah. And it's possible that he was, from some point, maybe in the very beginning, that he's just like, I'm going to act like I'm in love with her, and I'm going to go on the show, and I hope that people really think I'm awesome. Okay, it's possible. You know, it's an hypothesis. Not likely, but it's possible. Is it also possible that he was writing that as a way to pump himself up? Like, okay, you could do it. You know, you could be the most famous person, you know. It's sort of like you're about to go on stage and perform as a musician, and you just look at yourself in the mirror and you're just like, I'm a god, or I don't know. I'm amazing. I'm a really great singer. I don't know. It sounds stupid, but some people do that, and it's not an indication of narcissism or something. But it is interesting. It seems to be unexpected that he would be interested in that, but it doesn't really matter.
I want to set the record straight. I write 90-day goals. At that date was the end of my 90-day goals. When I'd written it, it was 3 months before that. I was with my friend. He got me into doing these 90-day things. You know, he's like, you know, you got to get into this stuff. And I didn't know what to write down. And you know, he was just like, write down anything. So I was like, okay, get in good shape, you know, sell 2 homes. Obviously, I wanted to sell 10 homes.
Okay. Yeah, it's starting to sound, it's interesting to hear the context, right? And it is starting to sound like that hypothesis that I had. And we don't know, he could be lying here, but that he was not used to setting goals. And as he's filling it out, he's just like, okay, what do I put as this third one? I don't know. Okay, you know, I want to be successful in my job, and I want to, I don't know, get better in shape. And then number 3, I don't know, be the most famous person on Love Is Blind. Yeah, that fits with his presentation. Again, we don't know. He could be faking it, or he could have a lot of aspects to his personality that aren't immediately detectable in the edit.
By that time, and you know, be famous off Love Is Blind. That was way before I even knew I was going to be on the show. Way
It was 2 weeks before. That's
the date. It's a 90-day thing, so I write the finishing date as that.
Yeah, but even if it was 2 weeks before, who cares? What does that mean? Even if you went with it and said, I don't know, I don't know what point she's trying to make. Is she trying to say that he's narcissistic, or that he is immature? I don't know does that let her off the hook? No.
So that was way before I even knew I was going to be on the show. I was taking it super light. We had been through a couple interviews. I would never sit there on camera and say I love you 100 times to someone if I didn't mean it.
Okay, so that is an indication of what the accusation is that he never really loved her, which, you know, is possible. We can't know. Again, the way that he presented in the edit, it's not super clear that that either one of them were into each other, honestly. There are people on the show, like I guess you could say Tyler and Ashley, but definitely Garrett and Taylor, where proof's in the pudding, they got married. But even when they were on the show, you could clearly see that they were really into each other, the way they talked to each other, the way they talked to their families, the way that they tried to work out their conflicts, the amount of effort they put into well, I guess Garrett and Taylor did. But with them, and really with a lot of the other individuals, I mean, you could point to Marissa and say there's a lot of indication that she was in it to win it, right? But yeah, is it possible that he wasn't really in it? Okay. And maybe that's a viable criticism, a viable point to bring up. I think looking at that one goal doesn't say anything, although it could, it could be that so that's the accusation. I mean, those aren't mutually exclusive. You can't have someone can both want to be famous or want to be seen as like a hero on Love is Blind and go on the show legitimately. I would assume all the cast think pretty heavily about how they're going to be seen. It would be unwise to not consider that, at the very least, before you go on the show. So I wonder how people are going to see me. But anyway, so that's her accusation. Okay, it's possible. It doesn't vindicate her. But I just want to point out that the hosts asked her pretty lightweight questions. A lot of people seemed, I think, be laughing at the way she was avoiding and not acknowledging it. Nick sticks up for her, and then she, without anyone else, wanting, it looks like Marissa might be in support of her, I'm not sure, but without any prompting, she came to the table, Hannah, with this zinger. She's like, that's, I don't know if she's abusive, but abusive people will have tactics like this. They need to establish that they are superior and that you are not, and they will spend time prepping for that.
Everyone up here would say, I'm the same dude from start to finish.
And me.
I mean, yeah, I would expect you to have your girls back.
Not only that, Nick, but how, some of us come onto this experience serious about finding love.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter if it's a 90-day date, a year date, I think writing down that you want to come on the experience to be the most famous person on Love is Blind, it's like a slap in the face to some of us.
What? How is it a slap in the face to you? Well, what she's saying is that you weren't on the show legitimate. How do they know that? They don't know that. No one knows. Do they have another data point aside from that? That doesn't make any sense. Yeah. I find that people will sometimes have these ways of seeing it. That if the cast on this show, or really any of these types of reality TV shows, if they are cognizant of the fact that they will be seen in a certain way, and they show evidence that they are mindful of that, then that means they're only on the show because they're trying to get Instagram followers. I just don't think that that is necessarily true. Now, I want to say again, maybe he was faking. Maybe they have other data points. We'll see.
Experience.
Yeah.
So it's like, I know that you were a good person when I knew you in the pods, but then you hear about these things and you're like, what were you here for?
It was so irrelevant and meaningless to me. That's why I left that notebook on our counter every single day we lived together. I knew it was in there, and if she wanted to look through it, fine. But I felt like Hannah knew how I felt. I was telling her I loved her. She met my family. I lived with her. I was taking it extremely serious.
And then talking while he's talking, he's a really good talker, isn't he? I'm not debating. I'm just going to let him do it. Look, you think that he was, if you have other data, I guess bring it up. But if you don't, then, yeah.
I think Nick is a very calculated person. And to hear the things that he was saying behind my back after the reveal, I was just honest. I'm an honest person. Nick, to be honest, I did feel like I was a foot taller than you in that situation. I'm not a foot taller than you, but I felt like that in that moment. And if that's what I did, so he was ugly, it didn't say anything, and I'm getting hate for that. But meanwhile, I hear that he's saying stuff after the reveal, calling me a grenade and calling me ugly, and all these people are saying that he's saying all these things behind my back. But then when he gets on camera, he's like,
okay, so she is saying that she heard after the hallway that he didn't think she was attractive, calling her a grenade. I'm going to have to look that up. Oh, wow. it's worse than I thought. So it is apparently, according to Urban, I should just leave Urban Dictionary open when I'm watching the show. But according to two definitions, the most upvoted definitions of grenade, it's essentially when you're in war and you have soldiers and a grenade is dropped between the soldiers. One of the soldiers will fall on that grenade to save the other soldiers. And the idea is that when a bunch of people walk up to another group of people to hit on them, and one of the other people is ugly, then someone from your team has to bite the bullet, so to speak, and be with that person so that your friends can get with the other people. Did I explain that? Well, okay. And then what other words? So I wonder who she would have heard this from if it's true. And it's possible. But who would she have heard? I mean, certainly production wouldn't tell her, I assume. So it must be one of the guys that he confided in, I'm guessing.
That. Well, meanwhile, like I hear that he's saying like stuff after the video, like calling me like a grenade and calling me ugly, and all these people are saying that he's saying all these things behind my back. But then when he gets on camera, he's like, Hannah's just so amazing.
Yeah, there's a possibility that this is true. It doesn't justify anything that happened because Hannah probably didn't know that at the time. I assume if she did know it while the show was being filmed, that we would have seen something different from Hannah. I don't know. Did she know about it right away? I'm assuming not. But anyway, did she say, I'm going to rewind it.
Foot taller than you, that situation. I'm not a foot taller than you, but I felt like that in that moment. And if that's what I did, so he was ugly, I didn't say anything, and I'm getting hate for that. Well, meanwhile, like I hear that he's saying like stuff after the video, like calling me like a grenade and calling me.
Yeah, so she's not indicating, maybe she will, but she's not indicating when she heard this. But yeah, it's possible. We don't know what is going on in any of their minds when they meet each other in the hallway, unless they're pretty overt about it, like when Hannah was, and she's saying what she said. And yeah, what Hannah was saying wasn't like awful, right? She was saying that he just seemed smaller and shorter than she imagined in her mind. And you could argue that he led her on, because I know that Travis Kelce is tall. I'm pretty sure Henry Cavill's pretty tall too. But anyway, so there's that. And that pales in comparison to calling someone a grenade and ugly, right? And that's interesting. So if he did say those things, which we don't know, then yeah, that's a pretty big yikes. And why wouldn't she lead with this? Because the Notebook thing wasn't a slam dunk. If this is true, then it is more of a slam dunk. Because if you know, sometimes when I hear this kind of thing on the show, I'll be like, well, you can not be super attracted to someone in the hallway and then yet still want to play things out and see where things go and hope that you'll be attracted and find that you're attracted enough or something or whatever, you know, like it's not this binary thing. But that statement, if true, I'm wondering if it's true because of that specificity, grenade, right? It's not like she's just using general words. It's like that specific word. I don't know what that says. And if that is true, then, yeah, that would align with the other accusations that she has of him not being on the show legitimately. Because, yeah, you would think that if he was legitimately on the show and legitimately fell in love, but then meets in the hallway and then says, but also you wouldn't say, okay, I'm assuming that that is true. Of course, we don't know if it's true. We'll find out. But if it is true, then there's no way, or at least it would be very strange if he was legitimately in love, right? If you were legitimately in love and like, I'm going to marry this person, and upon meeting them, you thought that they were very unattractive to you, you wouldn't use those words, right? Like we've seen it before. We like with Irina, for example, And I don't know if that was just lack of attraction, but I think we saw it with Sal and Mal in season 2. We saw it, I think, in season 2 as well with Shayna and I can't remember the guy's name. Was his name Nick? I forget. She didn't say I was unsure, but they get engaged. They meet in the hallway, and then directly after that, she says, "I'm out of here. I don't want to be on the show anymore," and she bolts, and she never dates the guy. So, I mean, I don't know. I guess there are other possible explanations, and it's pretty harsh and uncool. But anyway, you just think that, well, and that points to Shayna, because we wondered if Shayna was actually legitimately engaged to that other guy because Shayna wanted to be with Shane, right? Anyway, so yeah, I don't know. Maybe y'all know, and when we watch ahead, we understand it to be a lie that Hannah is saying right now. But now both things can be true, that Hannah and the hypothesis that I've put forth about what we're seeing can be true, and it can be true that he was going on the show illegitimately.
Ugly, and all these people are saying that he's saying all these things behind my back, but then when he gets on camera, he's like, Hannah's just so amazing. And
I promise I'll stop yammering as much, but I did wonder about that. When he did say those things, it did seem odd. At the very least, it seemed disjointed from the way he was being treated. But the way that he came across, and I've been kind of alluding to that, right, or saying it as much, is that he didn't seem, and I remember thinking that too, but I didn't know what that was. I remember earlier on saying that I would see two modes. He was either Rico Suave or he was kind of blank. And when Katie at the party tells him that he doesn't need to be Rico Suave, he didn't really understand, I think, what that meant, because I don't know if he really knows who he is yet or something. Anyway, but I don't know. Maybe he does. But it did come across, but there's another explanation, which is that he doesn't really know who he is. But if it is true that he said those things, and then we look at this, then yeah, you just wonder what was going on there. All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. I thought I would give a shout out to members who have been members for the longest, because that's always the key, is if you can become a member or a patron or both for the longest amount of time, or, consistently, because then we can feel secure in our financial future, keep this thing moving. And as promised, I want to continue the list. I already listed a bunch of people that have been members for the longest. Continuing that list, we have Lily, Eileen, Sarka, Nikki, good old Junie Desiree, Adriana at good old Antietam, Beatrice, Brandy, Sonia, Megan, Michaela, Brian Bites, Natalie Paints, Simon Larson, Tiana, Bettina, Rami, Just Maddie, Erica R, Ms. Mendez, Nicole Knows Books, Tom Bracey, Spider in a Cup, Exo Bellis, Jessica PL, Marcus, Sarah, Casey, Marissa, Rachel, and I'll continue this list next time. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself. Really, I'm not just listing names. I'm actually, I can see your picture, and it warms the heart that you would sign up to become a member of this thing and that you would stay a member this whole time. It's really great. Thanks. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it. You really, really do.